कि अडानी जो नया एयरपोर्ट बना रहा है उसके लिए अगर वो बॉन्ड इशू कर रहा है तो टेक्निकली वो मेरे से लोन ले रहा है.
It means it is issuing an instrument where it is able to raise capital.
Do you think that's a mindset that कि मैं FD में अगर डाल रहा हूँ पैसे तो मैं सेव कर रहा हूँ?
Like first thing that comes out of a parent's mouth, बेटा एक काम कर FD करवा ले. Because that's a mindset. It's hardly ingrained.
पर अगर बॉन्ड में मैं पैसे डाल रहा हूँ तो मैं एक्चुअली इन्वेस्ट कर रहा हूँ, which is different to saving.
A small disagreement, you want to also have the ability to remove it because you're saving for usings.
Listed debt, AAA rated debt by default हुआ है, फिर तो उसमें भी रिस्क है. Think about it.
Very good point. There is a history of default in India. There is a bigger history of default in America, Europe and everywhere.
रेटिंग एजेंसी का फ्रेमवर्क है, इट इज अ प्रोबेबिलिटी. ऐसा नहीं होता है. 100 केसेस में कितने केसेस ये हो सकता है ओवर ए लॉन्ग पीरियड ऑफ टाइम.
When did you seriously start considering that you should add fixed income to your portfolio?
The moment I had something to
Honest answer. Hey everyone, welcome to this new concept by Alt Investor. Today I am joined by 5 different founders from the alternative investment industry. Or to be more specific, 5 different OBPP platform founders. OBPP stands for Online Bond Platform Provider. Together, these 5 founders and their platforms control more than 70% of the volume in the OBPP markets, and I think more than 80% in terms of its value, which is huge when you think about it. We're going to talk about the category alternative investments and deep dive into bonds as well as a category and help you make a decision whether this category is the right investment addition to your overall portfolio or not. We're going to be very transparent. We're going to be very free flowing in our conversation. I'll quickly set some context for all of you as to who our audience is as well today. We are dealing with someone who is at least 30 to 45 years old, has at least 6 to 7 years of working experience, has at least 50,000 rupees to invest in any asset class, be that fixed deposits, mutual funds, equities, NPS, PPF, alternatives maybe, has fairly good education, comes from top 4 to 5 metro cities, has invested in at least 1 to 2 traditional instruments, understands investments that they need to invest but don't have that financial knowledge. Maybe they don't even know that FDs are insured up to 5 lakh rupees. So go with that lens when you try and answer your questions. They have low financial and investment literacy, but they still have 50,000 rupees to invest. So via this conversation, we want to be very, very transparent and clear for them that अगर वो 50,000 रुपये मेरे पास है तो उसमें आप लोग को केस बनाना है कि ऑल्टरनेटिव्स के लिए क्यों एक केस बनता है, क्यों बॉन्ड्स में भी पैसा जाना चाहिए अगर उनका जाना चाहिए तो. अल्टीमेटली डिसीजन इज ऑन टू देम बट यू नीड टू मेक अ केस फॉर दैट. Okay, so with that context, with that awareness in mind, we'll start probably and we'll probably introduce everyone first, but most of you are fairly popular. Everyone has seen you on a couple of podcasts or on YouTube videos. What I want to know, what the viewer will want to know is your backstory. आप लोग आए कहाँ से हो, आपकी क्या जर्नी रही है, how did you reach here, how did you decide to start this business as well. So go with that lens and let's start probably with you, Tirth, to answer that question.
So I did my engineering.
Okay.
From so basically Ahmedabad. So it's college called UV Patel College. So I did my mechatronics engineering. Then I went to Bombay to understand world of finance because an engineer understanding world of finance was a difficult thing for me because didn't knew about the concepts. Then I did my MSc Finance from Nottingham. Started fixed income in between.
Okay, fixed income.
And then I did my MBA from Babson.
Okay.
So how I get into fixed income? So my father was into bond market, so there was a natural affiliation towards the debt market. Of course, while you grew up, people talk about equities and you find that why we are into debt when equity is so much talked about, it is fascinating. But then as you grew up, you understand that debt is very important, not from an investment perspective, but from a global or from an economic perspective also. So that's when the affiliation started. So when
Can I ask, how did your father get into debt market?
So he's an engineer by degree. So it's a long story that he started as an engineer, then he went into finance. He had his heads on equity.
And when was this? When did he get into debt market?
1993.
1993.
Oh yeah. So the group has completed 30 years.
What's the group called?
Tipsons.
Tipsons,
So
okay.
has completed 30 years in the market. So it's a long 30 years journey. They have seen the market, all the ups and downs of the market. So I think so their experience has helped us build today what we call on the retail side the fixed income. Because when you have this team, they understand how market reacts, how market moves, what is good, what is bad.
But sorry to interrupt you, 1993 में conviction कैसे आया?
See, so he always tells that whenever you see an opportunity where people are not going, you should go.
Okay.
So that's when he got this conviction. He thought that no, this is a market which will fairly grow bigger with time. Of course, equity was very much talked about because all the Harshad Mehta time was there and equity was picking up. But he felt that he met few people who started talking about bonds or GSEC market because I think so this time government securities market was much bigger. So he felt that no, let me go into something which is bigger than equity globally. Because of the conviction that one day this market in India will also grow much larger than equity. So that's when the conviction started in 1993. So that's when the group started. Okay. So when I joined the group way back in 2019, it was all in institution markets. And then I was sitting across a table with few of the friends and they were discussing about where to invest and how to invest. And then I suddenly said, why don't you invest into bonds? And they were like, bhai, ye kahan se hota hai? Where do you get it? How do I get it? Liquidity nahi hoti hai, transparency nahi hoti hai. And that's the idea of how the fixed income was born. So we started fixed income in 2019.
So the fixed income is a retail platform?
Is a retail platform focused on retail clients.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you, Tirth. Moving on to you, Saurav.
Yes, I'm born and brought up in Mumbai, and then I did my engineering from BITS Pilani in the Goa campus. Post that, I always wanted to do something in finance, so I went to do my MBA. So I did my MBA from IIM Ahmedabad. That I passed out in the year 2012. So post that 12 years, I worked in, I would say, in a corporate job. Started my career with a company called Feedback Infra in Gurgaon. And when I joined that from campus, I basically was a part of their M&A team and their corporate finance team. So and that was an
What is M&A?
Mergers and acquisitions. Okay. And in Feedback, used to basically work in the infrastructure sector, working on large-scale infrastructure projects as service providers.
Give an example of a infrastructure project.
It can be different. So, they used to manage, let's say, a toll of any highway that you see, or provide the design and architectural aspects of it. We also used to do fundraising for those projects, for the project SPVs. This can be also then a power plant, right? So, in the power sector, it can be a hydro, a hydro project in some place. So it's like anything in the infrastructure space, and real estate included, right? So there were multiple sectors within infrastructure: real estate, energy, transport, which is highways, and then power, right? So I would say these were the four projects, verticals that Feedback used to work on. And as a part of the M&A team, basically used to raise both equity and debt for not just Feedback as a company, but also for these infrastructure projects. And that's where I saw participation from large institutional investors in corporate debt in India.
Who is an institutional investor?
So obviously there are like banks in India. There are obviously infrastructure funds specifically set up. We also raise foreign capital because ECBs, like World Banks, IFCs, like these are the kind of people used to invest in infrastructure in India, back then, and they do so now as well. Also, you'll have like private equity funds like your Brookfield and CPPIB in Canada, which is a Canadian pension fund, and so on and so forth. So all of these folks were large, I would say, investors in the infrastructure space in India. So that was my foray into debt. So I understood the technicalities of debt, why a company is raising debt, how debt is helping that company, and the point that he made made, like debt is not just about investment from an investor's perspective, but it has so much to do with the overall economy, for the country. So I kind of got that perspective over there. And then I spent then from the infrastructure sector, I also moved to real estate because I had that exposure. And, and as I started seeing the real estate sector especially, I saw that a lot of large HNI investors used to participate in debt. So, typically...
HNI, who is an HNI?
An HNI, obviously today you can think of in common parlance anyone who has a net worth of let's say more than $1 million.
Okay.
Because that's where you start getting...
That's the US definition, right? India
Yeah.
में किसको HNI बोलेंगे हम?
Yeah, so see in India, so there's obviously not a technical definition of HNI. Now you can think of 0.1% of the population. If you think of that as an HNI, then obviously in India that definition becomes wider. But I would still say that we look at HNIs, people who get serviced by wealth professionals, and because you have an external wealth manager then managing your money and you don't do it yourself.
तो fair to assume कि 1 करोड़ रुपए तो minimum होना चाहिए.
1 crore तो minimum होना चाहिए, right? So we used to see a lot of the HNI investors. So real estate has only two kind of investors: people who like real estate or love real estate, and people who hate them.
Okay.
There's no one in between, that we saw in that sector, right? So, but what I realized that people used to love debt as a product. A lot of people used to invest in
Is that true?
debt. It is,
Okay.
right? So
in the HNI segment.
In the HNI segment, right? And then and my other co-founder Jiraaf, he comes from, actually he spent about 8 years at Piramal, grew Piramal from a $50 million book to almost $8-9 billion. He used to manage $1 billion portfolio over there. He used to come from the lending background, and in fact he and I were clients or RMs to each other in some sense, and also talk every day. So we used to they used to run a PMS, they used to run a debt fund, we used to do these structured opportunities ourselves, and then we realized there's so much of love for debt in the HNI space, and we are we don't hear that debt as an asset class in a retail portfolio at all. And that's where it kind of hit us that if I want to invest 50,000 rupees or a lakh, I really don't know, I don't have an avenue, and nor do I know where to invest and how to invest. But somehow, obviously people who have larger wealth pools understand that asset class very well, right? So I think that was the, I would say the
origin.
moment where we felt that this is a big space in India. And then we kind of, as we understand it, as we understood the retail segment more, we realized that obviously the awareness is absolutely not there. It's just, not for both of us, but the larger public is not aware at all. And I think that's where the opportunity is for us, right? And if you see globally as an asset class, that is so huge, but in India, so globally, global debt market, if you see, cumulative is larger than the global equity markets, right, overall. So in India, if you see, the debt market in India will be 20% of its equity market over here, right? So, so there is obviously India is very unique as a matured economy. Obviously, globally also institutional participation takes the larger pie. I will not say that, but India has a long way to go from a debt market perspective, and it starts with, I would say, a flywheel with many market participants coming together, and retail investments obviously is a very, very key aspect of that. So,
Do you think retail investor is someone who has 50,000 to 1 lakh rupees? आप उनको retail बोल रहे हो कि कुछ और definition है?
yeah, I would say that 50,000, if you can invest 50,000 monthly, I would still put them in an affluent category. A retail investor, I would say in India, the larger population is who can have an exposure of maybe 10,000 to 20,000 rupees as a portfolio, and start from there. And then, obviously as they, are a part of, let's say, a professional job, or, doing, maybe a business or self-employed or a professional, then they start building up their financial portfolio starting from that. So,
Okay, awesome. For some reason, I always thought you were from Calcutta. I don't know.
my surname gives it away.
But are you? You're not, right?
I'm a Bengali, obviously,
Achha.
but I'm born brought up in Mumbai.
Okay. Thank you, Saurav. Vishal, moving on to you.
Yeah, thanks Yash. So for me, I think I grew up in Calcutta.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yes. So আমি বাংলা বলতে পারি. And like a classic young guy figuring out what to do in life, I was part of this organization called ISEC.
ISEC, yeah.
Yeah, did 1 year full time as ISEC India president.
Oh, really?
Hung out with some very stalwarts at that point of time, but you didn't really understand what big guys they were, Ratan Tata, Godrej, etc. But classic youth, not knowing what to do, bummed around for a year or two working in organizations. And then I realized, the whole concept of internationalization, etc., started. And I realized I want to do finance, and that Bombay was the hub. That time it was called Bombay.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Everyone says you wanted to get into finance, but why did you want to get into finance? Was it the money? Was it the access to?
Absolutely.
Absolutely the money.
Absolutely the money, right? So let's not deny that finance as a profession from a 0 to 10 year pays in a corporate job the best.
Okay.
Very high attrition rate, so you might not last 3 years. So 0 to 3 years, you might actually get out. And when I'll tell you more about experiences, but that's why I just thought finance is cool. Let's get into it. I want to get to Mumbai. So contrary to some other stories, I started with a debt broking house called Mata Securities. Amazing founder, late Madhur Murarka.
In Mumbai.
Yes. And like any guy, young guy, I wanted to do equity, and he was like, "नहीं तुम bond desk पे करो." ऐसे bond होता क्या है? Equity में I want to be millionaire tomorrow. So I started on the bond desk and actually started like the journey, 6,500 rupees salary in Bombay.
And this is what year?
I don't want to date myself, but this is late 90s. Just that classic, I don't want to take money from my dad, I want to make something of my own. Sure. So really started from there, and that time I think the big thing was let's go and study abroad because India hadn't opened up and things like that. So the debt markets were just starting in India, and to your point, when the equity market was very big in 94, 93, 94, Harshad Mehta time, actually people don't realize that the leverage in the equity market bubble was provided by the debt market, by the government bond market, and that's how the whole fascination grew, and the city banks of the world, and sorry, I'm taking some names, but these guys were very, very big players. So anyway, cut the long story short, went to study to London, did my MBA at London Business School, and just because I understood bonds and fixed income, I said, and the dot-com boom was on. So every guy was setting up some cool internet, and I said, मुझे bond trader बनना है.
क्योंकि पैसा है.
और यही समझ में आता है, like technology तो समझ में नहीं आती, right? So when I was doing my MBA, I just want to be a bond trader, and I started my career in the international markets at Merrill Lynch in London. Okay. I was a credit trader on the trading floor. This was the good old days before the financial crisis, and you really thought that in 10 years you could retire.
What is a credit trader, Vishal?
A credit trader who trades corporate bonds, right? So international corporate bonds. In the international market, credit derivatives or CDS was getting very hot. Credit derivative is simple. It's a contract like a interest rate or equity derivative that this company will do well or not well, or where the spread will be. Okay. So did that for a few years. Two of us set up the credit prop desk at Merrill Lynch in London.
What's a prop desk?
Prop desk is a proprietary trading desk where you're investing the bank's own money. Okay. A flow desk is where you're investing the client's money and helping them to facilitate. So proprietary trading desk. Financial crisis happened. Merrill Lynch, amazing firm, shut down. Since then, I wanted to move to Asia because I'd heard a lot about the Asia story growing and try to find my way back. I ran a stockbroking company in Bombay for a year as CEO. Okay. Went back, worked for RBS for 6 months, and then I finally found my home at Deutsche Bank in Singapore. Okay. I joined them as a trader, trading corporate bonds in different local markets in India, China, Indonesia. 10 years ago, we were running $2 billion in India in corporate bonds. So we ran that. In 2016, I was asked to go run sales, credit or corporate sales. Now, Deutsche Bank, a phenomenal firm for credit in Asia Pacific. And I started running that. And it was back to my broking days of selling bonds. But it was not only bonds, right? So then I got into financing, structured finance. Distress was a very big business. And as a bank, we were very involved in the entire credit crisis or upheaval in India that happened in 2019 to 23. In fact,
what was the crisis?
The crisis in India was obviously the huge amount of NPAs or non-performing assets where you have lent money and companies were defaulting, not paying back. Okay. And a new regulation called the Indian Bankruptcy Code had come in 2016. If somebody does not giving your money back, then you can go, this is not through the normal judicial system, but एक कोर्ट्स थे 8 या 10 कोर्ट बैठाए गए थे कि आप इनसे फास्ट ट्रैक कर सकते हैं. Some of the very big ones that happened in India at that time were SR Steel. So we were really participating, or we were part of that distressed business. एक NBFC थी जिसको actually I helped in the restructuring myself, representing Deutsche as to come down at that time out of court settlement. तो ये सब किया, but I think COVID time, me with my co-founder who is also has a lot of fixed income experience, it was always a pet project that India is such an equity crazy country. And thanks to technology, up click, you do equities, click, you do mutual funds. Why not bonds? So fixed income, globally I had seen everyone in the portfolio has fixed income. Everybody understands fixed income. And then we broke the framework as to why India, because a lot of people don't realize to buy a bond internationally is minimum 200,000 US dollar ticket. मतलब 1.6 crore का एक bond minimum मिलता है आपको. There is some fractionalization that has happened. And India now, आप 10,000 rupees में एक bond खरीद सकते हैं, 100 rupees में. So we really saw a tremendous scope. Secondly, there was no technological access built. There was no regulatory framework. So we thought this is pretty exciting and challenging, and that's why we launched this. Then I decided to leave Deutsche Bank and pursue this passion. I really think that we have an amazing scope in India for this asset class to grow.
Well, what's the name of your firm? Can you name your firm?
IndiaBonds is the name of our company. Badge यहाँ है. But just talking about the size, the bond market size in India is $2.6 trillion. मैं करोड़ में कितना बोलूँ 2,20,000 करोड़ बड़ा मुश्किल होता है. And to your point, it is now 60% of the equity market. Equity market is $5 trillion. In the US, Europe, Japan, the bond market is double the size of the equity market. So अगर bond market in India for economic growth, अगर हमारी country को विकसित भारत जो हम कहते हैं 7 to 8 trillion जानी है, तो lot of that growth is going to come from capital creation in the bond market. क्योंकि equity से आप इतना ही कर सकते हैं. So that's a very, very bullish on the scope, growth, adaptability and access of this.
Thank you, Vishal. Nikhil, coming on to you.
Sure. So I feel a bit of a outsider to the bond market. My journey, at least in bonds, have been much shorter. But let me give the full background. So I also wanted to get into finance.
Money or?
I think money was definitely a factor, right? And you also, at least when I was in college, startups weren't a thing. Okay, most of the people who went to
When did you graduate, Nikhil?
I graduated in 2009.
Okay.
From MBA and FMS, and when we graduated, finance was the thing to do. Startups are now replacing going into finance or consulting, but in my time, everyone wanted to get into finance. So I started a career with HSBC and then spent a majority of my career in banking with Morgan Stanley.
In Mumbai or?
In Mumbai.
In Mumbai. Okay.
So I think all of us must have landed up in Mumbai at some point of time for our careers. There's no option if you're in finance. So this was 6 years working for Morgan Stanley's investment banking team. Investment banking is advising companies to raise capital or to do mergers and acquisitions.
Similar to what Saurav did?
Similar, maybe just a difference in the sector.
Okay, sure.
Infrastructure, this was more broad-based. I was, a lot of my focus was on the tech side.
Okay, can you give me an example of a deal?
Sure, so there's an IT services company called Hexaware.
Okay, Hexaware Technologies, yeah.
Yeah, so Hexaware's promoter was looking to sell his stake in the business. They had a private equity firm, a large institutional investor who was looking to sell. So we advised them on the sale of stake to another fund. So that is an example of an investment banking transaction that we did. But those are the days that we started saying Make My Trip go public. So Morgan Stanley was the investment banker for Make My Trip's US IPO. So that's the phase in which I was doing my banking career. I spent 6 years there, and I had not much exposure to bonds. We used to represent Jaguar Land Rover to raise bonds in London in the high yield market. But other than that, my exposure was more equity and M&A. I wanted to get into startups. I wanted to become an entrepreneur. And
Why?
Why? Because I think entrepreneurship was a bug. It's something that I don't think anyone in my family has ever been an entrepreneur or done business. Everyone's been in services, most people in finance. But it was just a kida ki karna hai. After 6 years in a bank, you have a little bit of saving. You're still young enough to take risks. From a life point of view, it seemed like the right time to make that jump. So I met two amazing individuals, Mohit and Vinayak, who had a concept of making public transportation around buses simple.
Okay.
So completely tangentially opposite to investment banking. But I quit my job and joined them as a co-founder, and this company is today called Chalo. Our idea was that majority of people in India actually will take a bus to work, bus to school, bus to home in a city. If you're in Bombay, best. If you're in Delhi, DTC, Calcutta, CSTC, Chennai, MTC, right? But the journey of taking that bus is horribly painful. You don't even know when it will arrive, right? And in 2016, we had all gotten comfortable with the idea of Uber and Ola arriving at our doorstep, convenience. Why couldn't we deliver it to the 300 million Indians who take a bus to work, right? And so that was the business that we started. And I remember the first thing we did was no one would give us permissions to put GPS inside the bus. So we went and hired conductors, and we used to pay them extra money to activate the GPS on their mobile phones and use it to track the bus and then provide real-time information. So that's how Chalo started. It is today one of the largest mobility startups in India. They facilitate about 1 billion passenger rides across the country and also does ticketing. So if you're watching this in Bombay, you go in a best bus, you're buying a ticket from Chalo. So I spent 4 years doing that. Then interestingly got a chance to move to the World Bank as a policy consultant for transportation. As you can see, now you can understand why I think of an outsider. But I think Chalo gave me a perspective, for the first time, gave me a B2C problem to solve. See, investment banking is a very B2B problem to
What's
solve.
B2C?
Business to consumer. Right?
Okay.
The retail consumer, the person standing at a bus stop, thinking about how to take a bus, what should his app look like, how should his features be, how does convenience be for him, that was the first B2C problem to solve. And then I went back to a B2B setup like World Bank, where we were trying to advise the government on how to improve speed of public transportation, adoption of public transportation. About 2.5 years later, the Kida for entrepreneurship came again, and that's when Grip started.
Thank you, Nikhil. Irfan, coming on to you.
Thanks, Yash. So, a bit of unconventional start. In fact, I started off very young. Coming from a village, I started off very young in the railways as a ticket collector.
Where did you come from? So, which city?
I come from not a city. It's a village.
Sure.
Place called Gutti in small district in Andhra, southern Andhra. Right after my class 10, I got into railways. I had no conventional schooling, college kind of. Immediately after class 10, I joined the railways in a vocational course that sponsored my 2 years equivalent to +2 straight into railways. I served in the railways for about 6 years, 5.5 years as a ticket collector. All through the journey was trying to figure out how can I upgrade. Tried my hand at everything, civil services, banking, MBA, short service commission, etc., etc. Some wisdom dawned upon me. Went on to do my MBA from IRMA in Gujarat.
Okay.
Also wanted to be a CA, OCA jo banna saka. So at least because I was also doing my BCom, MCom from Open University, Usmania. So there was some bit of commerce, at least, investments mean commerce to me, in the sense accounting to me. I didn't know the world of finance investments as such, but something to do with commerce, accounting. Continued, I did my MBA from IRMA. That was the only formal education post class 10. And that's where I did my CFA as well. Destiny played a great role in terms of getting me into this institution called IFMR Capital. Very beginning, it was just starting. 2009, IFMR Mezzanine did tier 2 subordinate debt business for about 2 years, moved within the groups, playing multiple roles. I did structuring, credit, of course, business. Was largely involved in microfinance, small business loans, housing, affordable housing especially. All these were all sectors which are growing, which gave me a perspective into what the access to finance to an individual, an entrepreneur, women entrepreneurs, etc. mean. It has direct impact to what we are talking about. He talked about Viksit Bharat. It should start from there to not just be there at a $7-8 trillion economy, but to also have an equality, growth which is equal to everyone. So from that perspective, access to finance and efficient access to finance became so strong fundamental principles which we were thriving to. Again, that gave a perspective to solve through a B2B problem statement, in the sense that we as an institution were engaging with NBFCs who are engaging in the
What was this institution called?
FMR Capital back then.
Okay.
2009 till 2017 we were doing this, did a lot of first in the industry securitization, multi-originator securitization, so on and so forth. Then to take it forward, we one was fortunate to be part of the founding team to start Vivriti Capital. There again started off as a CBO CFO of that institution. We went on to the groups, went on to also set up Vivriti Asset Manager. My exposure to AIF, previously we also did some AIF, etc. Again, largely the mission was to ensure that there is access to finance, efficient access to finance, and then taking it to the last mile, because believed in the story that the last mile access is the again we discussed about equity, debt markets, but these are the things that will enable that kind of growth in the country. Subsequently, 2021 we again set up UB as a group, which was that was our attempt to solving finance and technology problems which were marred. We believed there is a lot of scope for technology intervention and then making serious amount of efficient interventions in this space. We now have built technology stacks for loans, then digital collections, and then obviously bonds also was another third pillar of our business as a group. In all this, what we've realized, we've been largely, at least I have been personally, a corporate lender, investments, banker kind of a role that I played across. We were engaging with a lot of institutions who are our counterparties on both sides. Thanks to our exposure to engaging with the wealth firms, and also the OBPP that we are we represent the fraternity, that was our sneak peek into the B2C kind of a problem statement, and it rightly gelled well with the overall mission in terms of solving for what we believe is the fundamental right to access to credit to that individual who is there. This is being solved by an issuer, and that issuer has few problems. So it was all linked from the fundamental problem, that grassroots problem, to the bigger problem that we are trying to address. So that was a very organic build out from a B2B to extending it to few distributors or wealth managers, etc., to accessing it on our.
So that was done by a UB.
That was initially done by UB. Then we went on to promote the subsidiary, which is now Aspero, which I represent. This is an online bonds platform which deals in the securities that we retail to our customers out there.
Got it. Okay.
And as a technology house, technology was very clearly a way to solve for the bonds problem that the country has. We touched upon, my colleagues touched upon the problem that we are facing, but our attempt was, we are a technology place, we are closer to we are always have been in the fixed income space, have not been in equity as such significantly. So it was very natural progression for us to extend the problem statement to this moat and then scale.
So on the table now here, I see most of the B2C platforms have some sort of wider group also leading them. आपके लिए वो Tipsons है, आपके लिए वो UB है, and would नहीं?
IndiaBonds standalone.
IndiaBonds is completely separate. Okay. And Jiraaf के लिए, it's completely separate. There's no bigger group leading.
No, so
from a bond.
Jiraaf's parent entity, it's a AI growth, so the bond platform is a subsidiary.
Yeah, okay. And for you, Nikhil?
No.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So thank you all for your introductions. I very inspiring also, Irfan, from railways to leading one of the bigger brands in the country now from an OBPP perspective. Very impressive. We talked about a lot of jargon here. I'll be very honest. Now we have to de-jargonize whatever everyone said in their introductions as well. So I'll start. After running a community of a modest 1,500 people, what I've heard about alternative investments, or let's say traditional investments, the main thing that I hear from people is equity, bond, NPS, PPF, इतनी सारी चीज़ें हैं. बॉन्ड्स की क्या ज़रूरत है यार, या फिर ट्रेडिशनल ऑल्टरनेटिव्स की क्या ज़रूरत है. तो फर्स्ट आई वांट टू अंडरस्टैंड प्रोबेबली फ्रॉम यू सौरभ दैट व्हाट आर ऑल्टरनेटिव इन्वेस्टमेंट्स एंड क्या 3-4 सेगमेंट होते हैं, बिकॉज ऑल्टरनेटिव में क्रिप्टो भी हो जाता है, एसेट लीजिंग भी हो जाता है, बॉन्ड्स भी हो जाते हैं, तो क्या क्या ऑप्शंस हैं?
Yes, I think while alternatives don't have a technical definition, but the way at least I understand is anything that is not a traditional investment category in India, anything beyond that falls under the alternative universe. And the traditional ones in India would be fixed deposit, equity, real estate, gold. Basically, each of these categories, enough and more Indians are already participating in, and at least everyone, even if not participating, understands this well. So anything outside this universe is then falls under the alternative basket. In alternative also there are, I would say, various themes. So you can become very exotic like crypto and angel also. But for example, real estate based alternatives can be the new SM REIT platform that SEBI licensed. So it's like fractional ownership or investment in commercial real estate, or I would say rent yielding real estate. Then equity alternatives can also be like the angel investing and the startup investing. And then there are debt based alternatives. Now debt based, like, because the traditional category is only fixed deposit.
What is debt?
So debt is basically debt, or what we call now, if from an investment side is fixed income, and from the liability side, let's say, it's called debt. What we mean is, if I am giving money to someone with a expect, now that someone can be government, corporate, individual, with an expectation to get that money back after a fixed period of time with a fixed rate of return, or a fixed return on investment, that is debt.
So loan.
It's a loan with fixed rate of return for a fixed period of time, right? So which is what we can, if loan is also the more nomenclature for debt. But so now debt based alternative means we are saying anything that can mirror a loan kind of a performance, which is, I know that I'm giving it to someone for a fixed period with a fixed rate of return. Anything that mirrors something like that, we call it like a debt based alternative. Now in that debt based alternative, because the only debt category that people understand is fixed deposit, then even corporate, like bonds, that all of us are now dealing with as OBPPs. Bonds also, at least the stage India is today, is almost like an alternative category.
Can you give an example of a bond?
So Government of India issues bonds which are called GSECs. So GSEC is also a bond. When a company issues a bond, it becomes a corporate bond.
Give an example. Maybe Adani जो नया एयरपोर्ट बना रहा है, उसके लिए अगर वो बॉन्ड इशू कर रहा है, तो टेक्निकली वो मेरे से लोन ले रहा है.
When Adani for the airport issuing a bond, it means it is issuing an instrument where it is able to raise capital.
Okay.
Now that means that when they issue this instrument, and like an equity share, this instrument will come in your demat account. So you have a choice whether you want to invest or not, and when you invest, Adani is getting that money. Okay. That money is to be used for its, let's say, building this airport. Right now, what you get, because you have invested this money, what you get in return, you get this bond, which is like a instrument in your demat account, and this bond is telling you that you have given this loan, debt or money to Adani. And now this bond has some characteristics, which means that it will have a tenure, it will have a coupon.
Tenure यानी कितने टाइम तक रहेगी?
कितने टाइम तक रहेगी? It will have a repayment schedule, so that means that I can expect my money to come back in so and so period of time with exact dates. It will also have a rate of interest which we call coupon. Let's say a 100 rupee bond can have a coupon which is, let's say, 9%. Okay. That means I'm expecting a 9% rate of interest. And then if you start trading in bonds, then it also has a characteristic like yield to maturity, which you should know that basis many things, the underlying yield might change. That means
yield मतलब कि मुझे कुल मिला के कितना मिलेगा?
तो कभी मैं 9% का rate of interest है, but because I bought it from someone else, I might have paid a premium or a discount. सो उस हिसाब से मेरा yield चेंज होगा.
और कुछ जो alternatives में आता है?
So alternative in debt base में जैसे leasing आ गया है, you know, which is asset category, which is I would say is in its nascent stage. Invoice discounting is a category which is in its, you know, nascent stage. So that these are all, as I said, mirroring a loan or a debt. That means whenever you invest in these products, you get a fixed return over a fixed period of time, and hence these all fall under the debt based alternative category.
Okay, so more or less प्रॉपर्टी बेस्ड ऑल्टरनेटिव जिसमें आपका रीट आ गया, SM रीट या फिर फ्रैक्शनल ओनरशिप. डेट बेस्ड ऑल्टरनेटिव उसमें आपकी इनवॉइस डिस्काउंटिंग, एसेट लीजिंग, कॉर्पोरेट बॉन्ड्स आ गई आज की डेट में. थर्ड इज क्रिप्टो या फिर स्टार्टअप इक्विटी, वेरी वेरी हाई रिस्क बट एन ऑल्टरनेटिव वे टू गेट योर पोर्टफोलियो. एनीथिंग एल्स एनीवन वांट्स टू ऐड ऑल्टरनेटिव्स में?
I think, you know, when you hear the word alternative,
Sure.
as a finance professional, you understand, because in the finance, and alternative is a jargon actually, to say that this is outside the scope of traditional, like it's exotic. And when I hear it in the context of bonds, it actually really hurts me.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm pretty sure all of you feel the same way. मुझे बहुत दर्द होती है because bonds is a very very mature market.
Okay.
Globally, we spoke about in India also it is a very
In India, very
बट रिटेल के दिमाग में जो ये मेरी टारगेट ऑडियंस है.
that's what I'm saying. So retail के दिमाग में is a second factor, but market तो market है, right? Have bonds been issued by a large number of companies in this country? Answer is yes. Have they performed well? Answer is yes. Is there a clear regulatory framework for bonds in India? Answer is yes. Does the infrastructure exist at the exchanges and clearing corporation, demat, depository? Answer is yes. When all of this exists, how can it be exotic? It cannot be, right? To say it in the same breath as crypto hurts.
Okay.
I'll just add on to that, because see, bond is a nomenclature, fixed income is the asset class.
Okay.
And in this country, मैं हंसता हूँ that 9 to 10 crore UCC unique equity investors are there, but there are 100 crore fixed income investors.
Really?
Yeah, because in your house, when a baby is born, what do parents do? चलो इसके नाम पे एक fixed deposit कर दो. Parents क्या किए? Fixed deposit कर दो. The worst way of fixed income investing is कि आपने you've left your idle money in your CASA savings account giving you 2% return. But there's some interest. The concept that I get an interest return, ब्याज जिसे हम कहते हैं, for money deployed is age old. So people are more fixed income. Equity market तो अभी पता है लोगों को, right? So the concept is clear. Now to put that in nomenclature, and agree with Nikhil that it hurts, right? And होना नहीं चाहिए. आप you've put it together. And maybe I'll take a stab at your alternative thing. Alternative by meaning is something which is not a large, massively, the market size is not that big or that well understood. It actually should be for specialists. Okay? So, lease, invoice, you call it real estate financing, actually existed in the country for specialists. Specialist bank lending firms, specialist asset managers, फॉरेन पोर्टफोलियो आजकल जो AIF है, प्राइवेट क्रेडिट जो चला है, राइट? आई थिंक इट्स कंप्लीटली रॉन्ग रिटेलाइजिंग इट, बिकॉज इट हैज़ अ हाई लेवल ऑफ कॉम्प्लिकेशन स्ट्रक्चर. आप आज नॉर्मल गवर्नमेंट सिक्योरिटी को क्रिप्टो के सामने खड़ा करके ऑल्टरनेटिव बोल रहे हो. हाउ विल अ गाय अंडरस्टैंड कि रियल एस्टेट फाइनेंसिंग में उसके कंस्ट्रक्शन रिस्क में क्या होना है? आपने 16% लगा के दिखा दिया उसको, सर बॉन्ड है. कंप्लीटली रॉन्ग. It should be banned selling at 1 lakh also. So I think alternatives, why people are trying to do retailization is क्योंकि complexity means higher margin for the issuer. तो आपको लग रहा है कि वो मैं retailization कर दूँ तो I can scale that up. But I think really alt is specific and for specialized investors. Should it become mainstream? There should be a qualifying thing. Either a hurdle by a कि भाई minimum इतना investment होना चाहिए, या आप AI जो बोलता है क्रेडिट इन्वेस्टर बन जाइए कि भाई मेरे पास 1 करोड़ है तो मैं कुछ भी कर सकता हूँ. And should be targeted around that.
I think it makes sense significantly. The moment you qualify or put a benchmark to say कि certain amount of investments means you are capable of taking that. I mean, it's an assumption. You are putting a cap. That could be regulatory wisdom trying to put a cap, saying beyond this you have the appetite to take that kind of complexity or risk to take care of that kind of complexity, evaluate that kind of appetite. and then take a judgment call. Then it is up to the investor to keep
So in India, actually an accredited investor concept exists, but it has not taken off for other reasons. But
No, but like they did for tier 1 bonds, right? The subordinated bank tier bonds में जो history हुई है recently 5 years में, they've made the minimum investment amount to be 1 crore.
Yeah.
But that said, I understand where you're coming from, and if you look at our user base, bonds is still very new
Yes.
in their
To this issue.
to their understanding of what is an investment option, and hence it is an alternative.
Sure.
Because of the size of the market for the retail.
Yeah, kabhi aapne,
Exactly.
apart from your father being in finance in bonds in 1993, my father never told me about investing in bonds. So
Even if I look at my family, since my father's into bonds, nobody invests into bonds. If I go and tell them, I'll be very honest.
But they've done fixed deposits.
Exactly. See, that's what I'm saying. Bonds should not be categorized as an alternative. But why we do it? Because if we look at the market that exists in terms for retail, people feel कि यार मैंने तो कभी किया ही नहीं है. The best, like first thing that comes out of a parent's mouth when his or their daughter gets the money is, बेटा एक काम कर FD करवा ले. Because that's a mindset. It's hardly engraved. I'm saying it is not wrong, but you should start looking beyond that in terms of diversifying.
I think if you can.
No, go on. Yo, मजा आएगा अभी 1 घंटा.
If I see this equity fixed income alternates, right? Fixed income, like he beautifully put it, right from FD to bond to GSEC to municipal bond to anything to do with corporate bond. It's a bond. It's a fixed income product, right? Within that, have we exposed? Is our customer exposed to all sorts of products within that asset class? Fixed income, significantly yes. Others, have we done it? No. It is largely has been an institutional market that we have seen. Right? Now, can we take it to the retail market? Absolutely yes. I think that's a demystification that we need to do. Why? Again, probably you were alluding to that kind of question. Fixed deposit, same risk, same bank FD versus a bond. You can choose between these two products because these two have a slightly different risk structures also. There is a 5 lakh insurance, and then there is beyond 5 lakhs, it's not insured. Then you can probably take into a fixed an NCD of the bank as well. So I think demystification of fixed income as an asset class and few instruments / products within that fixed income is something that we need to do as a community, and that's where the opportunity lies as well.
You wanted to add something?
Yeah, should I take a stab at fixed deposit?
Yeah.
So simply modern banking is a 100-year-old history. पहले लोग पैसा क्या करते थे? Ground में दबाया, gold pot में दबाया, mattress के अंदर रखा. Then the modern banking system came and they said कि अरे, if you have money, go and keep it with the bank. It was more for safety. कि आपका पैसा कुछ नहीं होगा. Then the competition in the banking sector said, "Arey, you keep with me, I'll give you 2%, 3%. So the safety concept, if you think of India 20 years ago, was कि यार बैंक में पैसा रख दो, and banking system competed to get your money and give you an interest rate on fixed deposit. Fast forward to post-COVID, the financialization that has happened and the growth that the country has seen. Today we're talking about FDs in the same breath as bonds. Believe me, 2 saal pehle, no one used to talk about FD and bonds. The reason is because the deposit growth banks ko nahi mili hai. So interest rates, because now smartly thanks to technology and awareness, you're competing for capital. Isliye FD rates higher hai. FD rates could 2 years ago was 200 to 300 basis below the bonds. कोई बात ही नहीं करता.
कितना था पहले? 2 साल पहले?
2 साल पहले 250 से 2.5 to 3% below bonds.
It was maybe 4.5.
Yeah, 4.5, 5.
अभी कितना है?
So अभी average 6.5, 7.
That is public sector banks.
हाँ, the small finance banks can give you 8.5%. So the competition of capital has come. So that's amazing. Our old mindset कि FD इतना दे रहा है हमें bond नहीं करना है, but now that you're financially aware, you can construct your own portfolio 8, 9, 10%. So I think FD जो पुराना ज़माना था safety से चला, अब एक instrument है. Very soon I think people will realize that maybe this is not the most active way to manage my portfolio. Keep some of your portfolio necessarily fixed income hai, but people have to and have moved to smarter ways of investing.
I'll tell you some of the myths I have heard about bond investing. But before moving on to that, first of all, I want to understand maybe from you, Tirth, सारे bonds regulated होते हैं?
So if you look at the bonds that are listed, rated, of course they fall into that regulated category.
Listing के लिए क्या करना पड़ता है?
So I think so listing has its own criteria that you have to go to approach the exchanges, they list it, it comes, both the exchanges have their own requirement about what are the things needed to list a bond. So once that is done, I think so the compliance starts in terms of they have to submit the periodic reports to the exchanges, which is available to the public at large to see how companies are performing and everything. So once it is rated, rating agencies keep on
Rating
asking
का
for
मतलब
it.
क्या हुआ?
Let's put into a common man perspective is if you are on Zomato and if you want to check a restaurant ki achhi hai buri, there is a star about 1 to 5. So now let's say when it comes to finance, it's not so easy. So that's where we have rating agency that is both regulated by SEBI and RBI because they rate companies in terms of giving loans as well as for the capital market.
कुछ नाम बोलेंगे आप? What are these?
So
Who
there
are
is
these?
CRISIL, ICRA, CARE, Acute. So these are the few of the rating agencies that exist in the market.
India rating.
India rating.
India rating.
So now there is a spectrum which starts from AAA, which I guess it goes till D, which is your default that happens.
Default मतलब पैसा डूब गया.
अब D माने पैसा डूब गया, of course.
डूबने का बहुत हाई मतलब डूबने वाला है.
डूबने वाला है
You have to go into recovery.
हाँ, you have to go
to recovery.
A promised payment either in form of interest or maturity hasn't been paid. आपको उसको recovery करनी पड़ेगी. कंपनी बेच के liquidity जा सकते हो, NCLT में जा सकते हो.
But that's a long process. Look, so if few of the
From a
companies,
common man's perspective, this whole default.
few of the companies that have gone D, the money is yet to be recovered because it's a long process. So once that is done, so that's this kind of the instruments which हम जो bond बोलते हैं, ये लोग rated होते हैं, listed होते हैं, these are regulated. And
तो
then
taking a step back, AAA मतलब 5-star rating. Zomato की scale पे आपकी 5-star rating AAA होगी.
Yes, according to rating agencies, this is one of the best companies. Their financial looks very well according to their parameters, and yes, it's a AAA.
A small disagreement.
Okay.
Zomato's 5-star rating is a combination of great food,
Of course.
health, and price.
Okay.
So that's what I said.
Let's not talk about other brands here.
So that's what I said. In terms of making common people understand कि
AAA 5-star means best from a health perspective.
best from a rating agency perspective.
Health perspective.
Whatever you say that
May not be the most
may not be the
appetizing for
most
returns.
ideal company, may not be the most best company, but whatever rating agency has felt according to
For
their
an individual like a CIBIL score.
हाँ, कि
Your
भाई ठीक है,
CIBIL
हो
score
गया.
is high, your rating is high. Right?
तो उतना ही है.
तो इंडिविजुअल को समझ
So
में आएगा.
that is there कि वो अच्छी कंपनी है. This is a good.
ठीक है, वो रेट लिस्टिंग हो गई, रेटिंग हो गई, और फिर और दूसरा क्या होता है? अनरेगुलेटेड स्ट्रक्चर.
Then it is unlisted bonds
Unlisted,
जो होते हैं,
okay.
where there is no rate. I think rating होती है, but list नहीं करवाते हैं. So that is what it is.
तो वो क्यों नहीं करवाते हैं?
There is multiple reasons for them. I think so compliance ज़्यादा बढ़ जाता है. Companies are too young to go for all those hassle. तो जब अनलिस्टेड और लिस्टेड इक्विटी भी होती है कि अगर मैं कंपनी बड़ी हो रही तो बोलता है कि नहीं अभी मुझे अनलिस्टेड इक्विटीज निकालनी है, मैं ESOPs दे देता हूँ, मैं किसी से पैसा वैसे ले लेता हूँ.
स्विगी आईपीओ, प्री आईपीओ.
प्री आईपीओ होता है, बट प्री आईपीओ से पहले भी स्विगी ने पैसा उठाया होगा. तो दैट्स अ जर्नी वेयर दे वांट टू ग्रो फास्ट बट डजंट वांट टू गेट इनटू द हैसल ऑफ गेटिंग इनटू टू मच ऑफ कंप्लायंस.
तो एक रिटेल इन्वेस्टर उससे कैसे बच सकता है लिस्टिंग और अनलिस्टेड?
Sorry, I'll disagree here.
अरे प्लीज.
I will not say unlisted equity and unlisted debt is the same thing.
ओके.
Unlisted equity in this country, अभी जो हमने इतना tech, the unicornization has happened, that I will go public at my own time and there have been earmarks where I have raised money at some valuations. मैं listing कराऊं कि नहीं कराऊं, मेरी इच्छा है. Companies love to get listed debt straight away, which means they've already grown to a certain thing and the cost of borrowing is going to come less. See, आप equity list नहीं कराते, you want to preserve your value. आपको bond तुरंत list करानी है as soon as you get healthy. So unlisted companies could be not only because of compliance, but they are really, really very small, right? And they should be at a much higher rating and there is no compulsion of financial disclosure. So I think equity में जो unlisted रहती है वो charm रहता है उसका कि value conservation है.
Smaller companies which are unlisted in equities also, which give out their own equities in one format. So if you go out and ask for unlisted equities, you will find a long list.
Absolutely.
Some of the companies we might heard about, some of the companies we might have not heard about.
See, one perspective there from an issuer, right? We are talking about a bond issued by an institution. That institution, can choose to be listed, unlisted. Why unlisted? Unlisted in today's regulatory framework, the moment you are debt listed, the current framework of listing requires you to be almost equal to be equity listed. What it means, your governance right from the top. Governance will need X amount of independent directors, women directors from there, to auditing at a frequency, disclosing to the exchanges at a frequency quarterly, right? So this becomes a bit extra. So now like Vishal mentioned, is that company ready to be able to expose that to the larger public out there?
समझ गया. So from a retail investor perspective, listed debt is regulated debt और वो उनके लिए better है.
बेटर है.
Better है.
समझने के लिए बेटर
ठीक है, मेरे रिटेल इन्वेस्टर के लिए वो चीज़ बहुत अच्छी है. अनलिस्टेड डेट में दे नीड टू ट्रेड केयरफुली अगर उनको उसमें पैसा डालना है.
अनलिस्टेड डेट में सेबी रेगुलेशन नहीं.
सेबी रेगुलेशन नहीं है तो पैसा अगर डूब जाता है तो दे आर एट देयर
देयर इज
ओन
नो
रिस्क.
रिकोर्स टू देम.
Okay.
एटलीस्ट अभी ये समझ के चले.
कहीं सुनवाई नहीं है.
Most important thing that we need to talk about is SEBI regulation. What comes to the investors rescue is there is course, there is, you can go into the grievance mechanism, you can reach out to the company, then to the SEBI themselves, complain, you can do whatever resorts that you have. Here you don't have a recourse other than going to the company itself. So thoda you are limited in terms of where you can put in your grievance and get them redressed.
Sure.
Also, I would like to add is way. So with listing, you get to know the updates about what is happening in the company. So that will help you to take informed decision whenever it is needed. Let's say if I'm buying a debt or a bond today, let's say if I'm getting in like numbers which says that okay, no, company is not doing good, is there a way I can sell that bond? Then I can do that. For unlisted, you have to solely rely on that company. You have to ask the company if they give you numbers. You have to believe what numbers they are giving is correct.
ओके गॉट इट. तो मैं इसमें एक मिथ जो मैंने सुना मैं वो बताता हूँ. लिस्टेड डेट AAA रेटेड डेट भी डिफॉल्ट हुआ है. वो क्यों डिफॉल्ट? फिर तो उसमें भी रिस्क है. तो विशाल व्हाट डू यू थिंक अबाउट?
वेरी गुड पॉइंट. सो सबसे पहले मैं कहना चाहूँगा कि AAA डेट देयर इज अ हिस्ट्री ऑफ डिफॉल्ट इन इंडिया. देयर इज अ बिगर हिस्ट्री ऑफ डिफॉल्ट इन अमेरिका, यूरोप एंड एवरीवेयर. नाउ AAA डेट जो इंडिया में डिफॉल्ट था अबाउट 4-5 years ago, आई जेन्युइनली बिलीव दैट आर क्रेडिट इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर और रियलाइजिंग कि भाई जो हम लोन देते हैं, क्रेडिट देते हैं, वो आईबीसी से द क्लीन अप मैकेनिज्म इज हैपेंड.
बैंक्रप्सी कोर्ट से.
हाँ, बैंक्रप्सी कोर्ट से. सो एक आध नाम जो AAA में वहाँ बैंक्रप्सी कोर्ट से गए थे, दे हैव रिकवर्ड 50-60 cents टू द डॉलर. इट टुक अबाउट अ ईयर और 2. एनी कंट्री टेक्स टाइम फॉर इट्स इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर टू कम अबाउट. लोग मुझे कहते हैं कि AAA में डेट किया है. ऐसे निफ्टी भी तो 5,000 पे था. याद है? नहीं याद है, राइट? So the system and the infrastructure in the country has really cleaned up. Our credit issues have cleaned up. Governance issues have cleaned up. आज OBPP we are sitting here is under regulatory framework, right? About disclosure, आपको 6 चीज़ें दिखानी है किसी को. पहले ये था नहीं. So the chance of mis-selling was very high. I think जो my favorite saying is let the buried ghosts lie and let's not revive them. No one talks कि भाई निफ्टी 5 क्यों था, 24 क्यों है, right? So similarly with credit, we as a country, we were a $1 trillion economy. We are a $4 trillion economy going to 8, and it's a journey of getting better regulation.
एक चीज़ हमको समझनी पड़ेगी कि अगर AAA बोल रहे हैं, it's not कि AAA मतलब कहीं नहीं हो रहा है. See, rating agency का framework है. We need to demystify this, simplify this. Rating means what? It is a probability. Probability का मतलब ये नहीं कि certainty मतलब दुनिया जहाँ
एकदम रिस्क फ्री है.
ऐसा नहीं होता.
Or fraud free. Fraud can happen.
100 केसेस में कितने केसेस ये हो सकता है ओवर ए लॉन्ग पीरियड ऑफ टाइम? कितने हुए भाई? तो वी हैव टू टॉक अबाउट दैट. देन कम्स द रेटिंग एजेंसी व्हिच इज इंडिपेंडेंट, रेगुलेटेड बाय सेबी.
बट आर दे इंडिपेंडेंट? एक और मिथ ये है मार्केट में कि इशूअर पे कर रहा है तो रेटिंग एजेंसी तो बायस्ड है.
This is a topic that is going on forever in terms of issuer paying
And globally.
And it's a very genuine topic to debate. But probably वो demystify करने जाएंगे तो मतलब so let us demystify this.
But there's much more regulation around the rating agencies, around debenture trustees, which we haven't touched upon. कि लोग inform करते हैं आप.
Actually, maybe one way to answer that question, we've all interact with rating agencies, right? And if I were to say my experience with rating agencies or our company experience with rating agencies has never led us to believe that there is lack of independence.
Yes.
They are professionals. They are, they are under very, very strict regulations from SEBI, and I have never felt that, anyone can particularly influence them.
What has been the probability of defaults in AAA category? Anyone has that number?
If you can count it in your hands, on your fingers, right? It's not enough.
Yeah, and you have large corporation equities go on circuit 20%. तब retail कुछ नहीं कहता कि भाई मैंने पैसे डूब गए. Right, and here as you said, the probability could be in 0.001 whatever. Sure. It happens.
Vishal talked about equity, tanking on a daily basis. The point that we need to demystify as a community is, look at it. today if the market crashes, they say, oh, bad luck. Today wasn't a great day. Let me come back to it. So there is no halla gulla saying, aaj tank ho gaya. Versus, debt is supposed to be by nature, by the risk characteristic, it's a lesser riskier instrument as such versus equity. Lekin we are talking about one instance. Of course, we cannot undermine the confidence dent that the investor community had because of the 2-3 issues, including institutional default, etc. No doubt about it. But the understanding of the risk involved in an asset class like equity is far more, accepted, absorbed in the community versus an FD. ऐसा समझते हैं कि इधर दुनिया जहान हो जाए, you cannot have a dent any day. So age-old ways to do it. Diversify your portfolio also. Yes. Right? Are there ways to do it? Yes, there are ways. Can we do it? Yes, we can do. उसके लिए, of course, you need to build depth. So there are multiple steps one by one, including education awareness that we need to create, as a community, as a fraternity. And that is the most important piece, including the show that you are doing, right? Is a way towards, is a means to, that end.
Slight, difference of opinion. And again, this is customer mindset. It's not necessarily baked in logic or finance. But when the equity market drops, you still believe that you're holding the share, and it has the potential to go up, including tomorrow, right? When a bond defaults, you don't see any hope value, right? It's a psychology of hope value. I think what we need to again demystify is the probability of that happening. Yeah. And now because the credit infrastructure is much stronger in India, there is still hope value, right? Most of the bonds that are available on any of our platforms or retail is a secured bond, right? There is recourse available inside the bond itself.
Recourse का मतलब क्या होने का?
Recourse means that in case the issuer or the company issuing the bond has defaulted, not made the payment on time, there are certain assets which are assigned to the bond. Okay. Now the recourse means that if I am not able to receive it, I can go and tap into those assets.
Can you as a retail investor go?
See, that is not physically possible. And hence, again, to the point on credit infrastructure, SEBI in its wisdom has created infrastructure where someone called a debenture trustee acts in the interest of all bondholders to take action.
Are they also regulated by SEBI?
They are also regulated. They need to have license. So it cannot be that anyone gets up tomorrow and says he's a debenture trustee. And they will act in the interest ताकि जो भी पैसा निकलेगा will get appropriately distributed.
Okay.
So there's a system. Okay. There is regulation. Our courts are stronger. There's a dedicated court process. Everything is demat held. It's not that your certificate is lying somewhere around. You don't know who the bondholder is.
Demat क्या होता है?
Demat is dematerialized. It's your ability to hold a certificate, share or bond.
Financial security.
In a digital form.
Okay. तो मतलब मेरा Zerodha के साथ account है तो उधर एक demat account है. Okay.
And same way, if you hold a bond, it's again in a similar type of account.
Okay.
So with all of this existing, hope value has suddenly changed. Right? Maybe in the 90s that was very different. But I think people should get the comfort that वो 20% drop होगा नहीं आपके bond में, probability नहीं है.
So I just want to add one point. Sorry, maybe I go. I think one of the things that when people think of fixed return and fixed deposit is, I think because fixed deposit came from safety, as Vishal was mentioning, people think of it as guaranteed, right? And when you think of bond also, when we say fixed income instrument and fixed return instrument, there is a underlying sense that this is guaranteed in some sense, and I can't think of a probability of a default in that case, right? So I think one is that aspect of it. Fixed does not mean guaranteed. There is some probability of default associated with everything. People are now talking that US government debt is so large that there's a probability that US government defaults on government, and you can assign some probability to even that, right? So now you can borrow that, and then there's an aspect of probability in everything. The other bit is on equity versus debt, right? I think if you look at it, when do you lose money in equity and when do you lose money in debt? You can lose money in equity by any random event, and what I mean is companies future like it can be company related, future potential earning, etc. It can be a macro event which is not in your control. COVID, Trump wins election in India, BJP wins election, whatever, right? Like, so any macro event affects equity things and your portfolio will do well. When do you actually lose money in secured bonds? All of us on our OBP platforms are selling secured bonds. You can think of it as that the company has to go to bankruptcy. You will not recover a single rupee from the bankruptcy, and then there is a 100% default. As he mentioned, even in that AAA bond that have defaulted, through the recovery process, 50, 60, some percentage was recovered, right? Now, for a person has to think that when you are investing in a AAA company, AA company, or even a triple B company, the time you lose money is when this company is going to bankruptcy, because you are a secured lender. If the company has ability to pay anyone, you are the first in line to get that capital back. You know, so I think that when they think of the probability of default, customers should think, is this company going to shut down? And if you can assign a probability to that, then that is the probability of a bond defaulting. I just want to add one more thing on the default aspect, right? And because we think of AAA, triple B, whatever, how does a company end up defaulting? So if it's a AAA company, if it is because of lack of financial performance or, company hence deteriorating, it will not go from AAA to default. The rating agency will first do a downgrade. You will become AAA to AA plus.
लेकिन ये retail investor को कैसे पता चलेगा?
No, I'm just trying to explain that how should you think of a journey. So it's not like the default happens overnight, right? When does the default happen overnight? It is a case of fraud, right? Only in cases of fraud, you will realize that the default happened overnight. In all other cases, the defaults will be the health deteriorating over a period of time.
You'll get signs.
And you'll get signs. And as Vishal mentioned, and there is so much of information, rating agencies are updating, disclosures are required. When you get those signs, you always have that option. Do I want to hold on to the bond? Do I want to sell it? Am I okay with a 2% extra because there was a covenant breach or a rating downgrade, etc., right? So what I am trying to say is that now you think of it, how many frauds happen in, let's say, in large companies in corporate India, and jitna wo, even if it happens in the equity market, you lose 100% of your capital because overnight, the stock will not trade. And similarly in debt. So I'm just trying to align, how people will lose money in both cases, because I think this concept of default in bond is very misunderstood, and people think that it's not really a very large risk. While we have to talk about it because nothing is zero probability, but I don't think it is anything material in that sense in the secured listed bond categories that we are
Governance
talking
in the
about.
country has improved.
Yes.
We all agree, whether it's equity or debt in the last 10 years.
No doubt.
अभी या तो कुछ जेल में है या भारत के बाहर है, right? So that fear that if I default has come into the picture of corporate India, right? Which is very good, because जब तक recovery का concept नहीं होगा, probabilities fail. Now there's a structure of recovery, and I think people genuinely, as you said in your case, कि prepay कर दिया because nobody wants a default name now. So that infrastructure in the country, and that's what is leading, or maybe part of the growth story of India.
True.
The governance means right allocation of capital and right capex at the right level of growth.
Probably one, and then we can. So, with respect to default, we need to understand this, that we talk about default as a 0-1, case. However, versus what's the key difference between an equity market versus a debt market that we are trying to build is liquidity, which is a direct, it's a function of depth of the market. As we build, it will come. Today, what happens is there is a X news, which could be positive, negative, that reflects in the price that is built, and then it is available, the bond or equity is available to be traded on the market. So if you go into the market, depending on the kind of stock that you hold, there is liquidity available for that. In case of bond, today that is missing. Hence, you are stuck with it, and you are stuck with that news. In case if it's negative, you are stuck, and then you are living with it through the day, and hence the anxiety levels go up, naturally. So it may not lead to default, but because you are not able to liquidate even at a lower price, like Vishal mentioned, 50 cents, 60 cents, I can exit, but not today. That's a core piece which is impacting the entire psyche. Had we given, fast forward, say 1, 2, 3, whatever the time frame that we take in terms of building debt, if there is an option to give liquidity at whatever price it is, price is completely market driven. Imagine you infuse that variable and then see the impact. You will see very different behavior and outcomes. Sure. So I think that is one piece where everyone, including the regulators, everyone is working towards also. The moment this variable comes in, you will see different outcomes and impacts.
Point taken. I'll move on, and I'll tell you one. I was having this conversation with my father, My sister is getting married next year, and he was like FD करा देते मेरी बेटी के लिए. बोले FD क्यों, कुछ और कर लो. बोले मैं FD में सेव कर रहा हूँ, मेरे को बॉन्ड में इन्वेस्ट नहीं करना है, मैं FD में सेव कर रहा हूँ. डू यू थिंक दैट्स अ माइंडसेट दैट पीपल हैव कि मैं FD में अगर डाल रहा हूँ पैसे तो मैं सेव कर रहा हूँ, और अगर बॉन्ड में मैं पैसे डाल रहा हूँ तो मैं एक्चुअली इन्वेस्ट कर रहा हूँ, विच इज़ डिफरेंट टू सेविंग. Any thoughts from anyone on?
Maybe I can take that first. So it's actually very linked to what Irfan just said. See, when you save, you want to also have the ability to remove it because you're saving for using. Okay, and today bonds are not liquid, right? Liquidity is not available, so you cannot think of it as a saving instrument. My personal belief is we'll get there. Okay, but we're not there yet. Even to some extent, a blue chip mutual fund can be thought of as saving, right? Because you can liquidate it the instant you want to liquidate it. But FD today is your hallmark for saving, right? And hence, I'm actually happy to hear that your father is still thinking of ki bond mein as an investment. I think that's a great mindset change that has happened, where they say, okay, FD serves a certain purpose in my life. It's only safety. I should 100% allocate 10, 15, 20% of my portfolio there for a rainy day, for anything I require. And then I will allocate my fixed income portfolio for investment in bonds.
Yeah. So I just have view like, right, in bond also, like there is, this is a more, that's what we are trying to do, right? Like build awareness. I think this is one of those lack of awareness and things. You can also save with bonds.
Okay.
What do you mean by saving is, I am not okay to lose even 1 rupees of this capital, right? Okay. But for example, rather than investing and let's say that you want to save 10 lakhs and you say I want to save 10 lakhs, I'll put it in FD. The government is insuring up to 5, right? But no one is thinking that I can put the same 10 lakh in a government security, which is GSEC, which is 100% government insured, right? Very liquid. Now, and you can invest with residual maturity of let's say 1 year, if you need that capital back in 1 year. But now this is a mindset, we will always think this investing versus not saving, even though this is less riskier than I will say than an FD, and most likely will give you a better return than a private bank FD for that same tenure, or a large PSU bank FD for that same tenure. So I think it's while the mindset is true, but that's what we are trying to build awareness for, that you can also save with bonds and you can also invest with bonds. It's what are you trying to, what is the goal, right? If your goal is protection of capital, then you save with a government security. If your protection is wealth creation, then you can probably invest in a lower, let's say maybe a A-rated, triple, whatever, whatever rated depending on your risk appetite, and you can invest accordingly. So it's just like aligning your mindset with your investment goal and objective or saving goal and objective, and choosing the right product to serve that goal. I think that's.
तो if I have a government security जो आप बोल रहे हो मैं सेव कर सकता हूँ उसके साथ, मेरे को उसको बेचना है, what are the avenues for me? क्योंकि none of your platforms as far as I know provide liquidity. You provide a quote. And you also on the platform OBPP platform.
Oh yeah, we have the.
Okay, so for any security or for only the security जो आपसे
The
खरीदी?
process is from RFQ, request for quote. But yes, government securities are the most liquid in the country. Billions of dollars get traded. So you can liquidate even AAA bonds any minute, any second.
Yeah. So Yash, as this said that, so GSEC, let's say is as good as a rupee note, 100 rupee note that you are holding, which says it's a promissory note from the government that you are going to get the money back.
But I've heard कि state government भी कुछ debt issue करती है backed by government of India और वो भी default होते हैं.
SDLs and GSECs are basically your sovereign debt, which says that they are issued by the Reserve Bank of India with
On
the
behalf
guarantee
of
of government of India, and it's a promissory note to pay back you the money. For a retail investors, if you want to understand them, anything that pays you above GSEC, even a 0.01%,
मतलब government security के ऊपर
कुछ भी दे रहा है 0.01%, risk starts.
Okay.
Now that's a basic formula. You have to understand that risk. Liquidity है because that market is huge. It can be anytime liquidated. Of course, it is market driven. So either it can, if you have bought at 100, it can be done at 100.10 or 99.90. But yes, it can be liquidated. So to your answer, to what Saurav said, to what Vishal said, that mindset has to be changed over a period of time. But what Nikhil said, that yet people are not there.
So what are you guys doing to change that?
We are doing this podcast.
Taking lead from your question. So what is that you are trying to say? बहन की शादी, This is a father's plan for a daughter's marriage. What does it mean? Let us take that lead, right? Paint a scenario. So every individual has certain goals, life cycle goals. You know, आज के दिन ये, कल के दिन वो, परसों के दिन ये, अगले साल retirement, post retirement, legacy planning, so on and so forth. So if we take this as events/goals, and then for each one, you could have a solution. For a scenario A, which is to go out and then trip around the world, you may have an sort of risky investment that you want to do after to be liquidated after X point in time. For a marriage which I don't want to go wrong, or an education planning which I don't want to go wrong at all, probably FD is a answer. Say till again उसमें क्या 5 लाख आपने जो बोला, could be that is a reason. Then subsequently G-Sec. So I think what I want to communicate here is, I think all of us are also at the end of the day in the business of managing the wealth that someone has acquired or planning to grow, etc., etc. Everything has to be linked to a particular goal or an event in the life cycle that one is planning against or planning towards, and then each instrument becomes relevant or irrelevant from that perspective. I can't judge a certain person's risk appetite and the purpose, etc., because everything is different, and that is what I think very well accepted. I think we have to start thinking from that perspective as well, right? और रही बात G-Sec sector, just one point मेरे दिमाग में आ रहा था. At the end of the day, from international community's perspective, India is BBB-, right? Investment grade. So there is a probability of risk there also. So we have to say risk free तो वैसे इस दुनिया में क्या है, right? So there is a probability attached to everything. The moment one starts appreciating these facts, I think the education awareness piece again will be a core agenda from our perspective.
Got it. Okay. So as I understand, bonds are the middle ground. आपको FD से थोड़ा एक्स्ट्रा चाहिए तो bonds में आ जाओ. Equity से थोड़ी कम volatility मतलब the risk कि ऊपर नीचे जाएगा तो आप bonds में आ जाओ. Do you guys also see it that way, pitch it that way to your customers, or there's a different mindset? Vishal?
No, absolutely. I think risk return metric, if you see, FD is lowest risk, lowest return. Let's say historically 7%. Equity, traditionally you want more than 12 to 13%. High risk, high return. तो ये 7 से 12% के बीच में जो है, which is a $2.7 trillion universe, is the bond universe. So सबको equity जैसा volatility नहीं चाहिए. And as per classic finance, corporate bonds, mid-rated corporate bonds have like 1/4 of volatility than equity market. So it's a right balance, and I'll repeat this: people are already doing it in the country. They don't know they're doing it.
So I'll just have another. So at least for like while we are again just trying to use lesser jargon over here. See, with FD, right? Like I think safety of capital is everyone's goal, right?
Sure.
I think the perspective everyone should think of is always safety of capital.
Okay.
Now let's say how much everyone has a threshold where beyond that they're like, now I have enough, right? Now what we call as emergency fund, or you can say 6 months of living expense, 2 years, 5 years, and you can say whatever is your risk appetite, I'm now comfortable. If I have so much money which is set aside, which I will never lose, then I can deal with any financial shock in my life, right? Medical insurance, life insurance, all of those fall under all of these buckets, I would say, in a similar way. Now you, at some point, you will cross that threshold in your income journey, and that threshold can be crossed at 2 lakhs, it can cross at 20 lakhs, right? Depending on. But now once you cross that threshold, what should be the aim with your money? Then it should become wealth creation. Now first and foremost, what is the biggest drawback of FD? It does not beat inflation on post-tax basis.
Okay.
That means you're actually losing money in its real value.
What is inflation?
So inflation, let's say we assume 6% in India typically.
मतलब inflation का मतलब महंगाई है.
हाँ, महंगाई है. मतलब at what rate is cost of living going up, right? या महंगाई बढ़ रही है, right? So I'm saying now अगर inflation 6% है, FD return 7% है, post tax आपका अगर 20-30% जो भी आप tax bracket में डाल दो 6% से कम हो जाता है.
Okay.
That means your money in real terms is losing value by putting in FD. I'm okay it loses value when it is for emergency, because I know मैं click of a button बटन में FD liquidate कर लिया, मेरे पास आ गया. So you know that gives me a peace of mind. So I'm okay थोड़ा you know if it lose. But after that, with my surplus capital beyond this emergency fund, everyone should generally look for that wealth should get preserved or grow. And by putting that money in FD, your wealth is not getting preserved. It is actually losing value over a period of time. And that is why understanding bond is important. And we are saying no asset class is 100% great or 100% wrong or bad, right? Like it has its place in a portfolio, right? So equity also has its place in a portfolio, and that's where I'm saying debt or bonds has its place where you are at least ensuring real wealth is not getting eroded. And I still want stability. I still want, I don't want volatility, as you said, and that's where bonds come in. I think that's the picture for me.
Okay, point taken. What about debt mutual fund? Debt mutual fund भी है ना, diversification भी हो रहा है, low cost भी है, और I can liquidate it at any point. Then what is the case for debt mutual funds?
I think the debt mutual fund as a product is a great product.
Okay.
Right? I think if you're a retail investor today, your general bias, if you're not as sophisticated, you don't understand the market well enough, should be whether it's equity or bonds to go to a mutual fund, right? You're getting diversification, you're relying on a portfolio manager, and today the cost of investing in a mutual fund is near zero. So all of those conveniences exist. I think in the case of debt mutual fund, the way the market has shaped up today, and it's for some of the reasons we spoke about, debt mutual funds are largely focused or largely oriented towards G-Secs and AAAs, right? Almost 80-90% of the portfolio is there. There's a category called credit risk mutual funds, which have some exposure to AA paper as well. But even the best performing debt mutual fund today is maybe in the 8 to 9% bracket.
Still not beating inflation.
Yeah, it's still not beating inflation on a post-tax basis. So it has a place in your portfolio more from a saving perspective, right? You can think of it the next step to GSEC. But if you're looking from an investment perspective where you want to be in that mid-teens return or the low teens return, I think that today is being solved by bonds. I would like to believe that if when the bond market scales up, liquidity gets solved, debt mutual funds will also expand their spectrum of offerings, and we will see debt mutual funds offering A-rated portfolios, etc. in the 10, whatever the returns are at that point of time. But at this point of time, that's the constraint with debt mutual funds.
So I'll probably add, so as we spoke about the recent credit crisis or issue or upheaval जो India में हुआ है, debt mutual funds face a lot of that, right? Because a lot of the NAV base really fell down, and there is a recent history, and debt mutual funds are regulated. A lot of people went to debt mutual funds because there was a tax angle of indexation which went away to make all things equal. So historically, debt mutual funds have returned a little lower return, and as Nikhil alluded, but if you are smart with your money, you can really create that 10, 11, 12%, 9% yourself. So there are the good things and bad things. I mean, obviously bonds में भी आप portfolio तुरंत बना सकते हो. There are basket, some of us are doing, bond case, some of us are doing. So I think both can coexist and have a purpose, but you can engineer yourself and earn higher return if you want to work harder for it. If you don't, please invest in it.
I can add to that. So as Nikhil said, it's simple that if somebody has, let's say, X amount of money, let's say 10 lakh rupees of money, they can allocate something which they don't want to manage themselves to a mutual fund, saying that, hey, you manage this money. I want a reasonable good 8-9% return. I don't want to take any risk. But now with the kind of information that is flowing out, the kind of things that are available to them, they can take certain risk to say, let me manage some of my own money by myself. Let me take that risk. Let me understand what is happening with that money. And let me see what returns I can get, that alpha if I can generate on that amount.
Alpha क्या होता है?
So basically any return that you get higher than your normal average traditional investment is you call an alpha. So that is where, as Vishal and Nikhil said, the coexistence of bond, debt mutual fund and bond can very well exist.
Okay.
I think there's if you're starting today in bonds and maybe just adding something, Yash, many people don't know that bonds are also available at 1,000 rupees, right? Debt mutual fund ka convenience hai, you can start at 100 rupees, you can start a SIP. I think what we also, while we're using bonds as one term, it's a spectrum. Like like you think of large cap, mid cap, small cap equity. There is also AAA, A, triple B. So there's a spectrum of what you want to invest in, and hence you can build a portfolio that you want with fairly less amount of money as a way of starting off.
Okay.
I think the debt mutual fund to me is a great way to start your journey in bonds, in corporate debt, and then go from there. At the same time, if you are someone who has a crore of rupees, explore a PMS, explore a debt PMS, explore a debt AIF, and explore different ways to manage your fixed income investments.
Okay. We'll move on to the next segment. I'll make a statement here, which might not be liked by someone, but it is fairly common that celebrities market stuff that they don't use themselves. I want to know how much debt allocation you guys have in your portfolios, because you guys are advocating for debt, bonds. लेकिन आप लोग के portfolio में कितना है और आप लोग क्यों? I mean, when did you really decide that I should have debt in my portfolio? If you could answer both of those questions. So Saurav, starting with you.
So at any point in time, I have anywhere between 20 to 35% debt in my portfolio, and I don't do fixed deposits.
Okay.
So I have
Not at all, zero.
I have zero allocation to fixed deposits. All my debt is in non-fixed deposit thing. I also started like as a only mutual fund, equity mutual fund only investor for the longest time. I think the first 5-7 years of my corporate life, I didn't do anything other than equity mutual fund. That time I used to do I had some fixed deposit investments as well. But I would say that as I started understanding the overall financial market landscape better, and why one product is good, and I think I always use this word, you only learn swimming once you jump into the pool. So I think the point is, for people who don't understand any product, you should at least try it with the smallest quantum of investment that is possible. And as Nikhil said, bonds, GSECs you can do at 100 rupees, bonds you can start with 1000 rupees. So even if for people who don't understand this, make a 1000 rupee investment and you'll get a flavor of how it helps. And I think once I started actively participating, and mostly it was about access, it was about liquidity, it was about these things. So once I I would say got a hang of those things, I moved away almost completely from FDs as a product, and then since then I've been investing in other fixed income assets.
Okay, awesome. Vishal, you have been a bond trader, so I'm assuming.
Yeah, so lots, more than 50% usually, continues to be.
Awesome.
But I mean fixed income, like because I have views on interest rates, so private credit bhi usme involved hai.
Okay.
Usme distressed credit bhi involved hai.
Okay,
fixed
but that
income
is via
products-
AIFs, I'm assuming.
Yeah, in different ways and formats, but more than 50% of my portfolio is usually in fixed income.
Wow.
I do not understand equity much, so I don't do much equity. But personally, yes, more than 50%. Playing around with crypto of late.
And that's because, not crypto, we'll come to that, but you primarily do debt because that's what you understand, right?
No, I think it is risk-adjusted returns are really good, right? Okay. So I'm not saying I have zero allocation to equity. Sure. I do have some allocation to equity, but I understand. I'm happy with a certain amount of risk and return, and I understand it. So I could go to an AIF which gives me 18 to 20% also because I understand it. Okay. So that's where the speciality comes in. But yeah, I'm always mostly in bonds.
And crypto, you said?
I just started experimenting, right? So
after the $100,000.
No, actually, I got it at 75,000 on the day, but through Ethereum. I mean, it's probably off topic, but it was simple that if the president of the largest country, just to give you an idea, global equity cap is $110 trillion, $75 trillion belongs to the US. तो वो कह रहे हैं और the CEO of America, Elon Musk, is saying it.
CEO of America.
Might as well put it. I do not claim to understand crypto, do not buy.
Okay, awesome. Tirth?
So I was explaining this to a friend by a very interesting conversation. So I said, right now for me, investing is not like something I was in college कि एक दिन pocket money है दूसरे दिन खाली हो गए. So now it has become more matured. So looking at what I am doing, I allocate 30% to debt all the time. Okay. Remaining is into equities, mutual funds, something into alternate assets.
And guys, we'll put out your portfolios in the public domain, so you better be saying the right number.
Of course. No, of course. It is not, as I said, it's not about selling bonds here anymore. So this is how I manage my portfolio. Now, as I grow, I think so this allocation will be more towards debt, because as you grow, I think so your risk-taking abilities goes down, but you want something which is fixed enough to give you constant cash flows.
But you look young.
So I am saying I right now only 30% or 20%.
Look,
I am
is.
young. So right now, as I said, I want to keep it like 20-30%, not more than that. But as I grow more in career.
Awesome. Okay. Nikhil?
Mine would be fairly high, maybe north of 75%.
Oh, wow.
But I also don't understand the equity markets very well.
Okay.
Funnily enough, my only equity allocation is to unlisted equity.
Okay.
Because being in the startup world for a fair amount of time, I understand that better. My exposure to debt has also started about 5-6 years ago, and it has built as new asset classes were looked at GRIP. The reason I am more bullish today is because I believe that the pricing of debt today is actually mispriced in the favor of the investor. There is so much illiquidity premium, so much limited understanding that the pricing of bonds is probably higher than where it should be. Okay. Today, if you go and buy a bond from a company, and this is my way of looking at it, you are probably earning more interest than the bank that has given loan to that company. Okay. If an SBI, HDFC, ICICI have given loans to that company, they're probably earning 100 to 200 bips lower than the
bips is
1 to 2%.
Lower. Okay.
Every 1% is 100 bips. They'll be earning lower. I believe that this is from a investment point of time, a good time. Also, while people talk about the stock market being at highs and lows, we don't talk about the bond market being at highs and lows. But actually, in some ways, the bond market has been at one of its lowest point ever from a price perspective, and hence there is an opportunity for a lot of capital appreciation in the bond market. So I think there is some of this is obviously based on what I do for living, but also because of where the bonds are today.
Okay. And Irfan?
Yeah, from my portfolio of the investable whatever is about 20%.
Okay. And when did you seriously start considering that you should add fixed income to your portfolio?
The moment I had something to
Honest answer.
significant thing has gone into building what we are doing.
That would have been a great answer.
Awesome. Okay. We'll move to the last segment, which is important from a retail investor point of view. OBPP. हमने बॉन्ड के बारे में बात कर ली, डेट के बारे में बात कर ली, फिक्स्ड इनकम बात कर ली. आप लोग को जो फ्रेमवर्क गवर्न करता है OBPP framework, let's talk about that. Vishal, do you want to talk about what's an OBPP framework?
Yeah, so OBPP is an online bond platform provider. ये framework came 2 years ago to SEBI. All of us are foremost a SEBI regulated stockbroker in a debt segment. So to all our investors who invest through our platform, we are regulated by SEBI, which means we are monitored, supervised, audited. There's a rules framework we have to follow. Our license will get taken away. So OBP is like your equity stockbroker, जो licensed है, हम भी licensed है. Earnest request to all our people who want to foreign bonds. Do not buy from unregulated platforms because you don't have SEBI protection, and do not buy unregulated bonds because you don't have SEBI protection.
And when did the OBPP regulation came in, Nikhil?
It came in November 22.
Okay.
So it's been a little bit more than 2 years.
2 years now. Okay.
And I think my sense is most of us must have applied somewhere in early 23. OBPP platform started launching in late 23. Right? I think that's when we all went live from a fully regulated KYC journey perspective. I think while the license and regulation is what Vishal spoke about, I think there are certain incredible aspects from a day-to-day perspective that investors should be aware of. One is that when you are investing, your money is not going to any of us.
Okay.
The investor's money is going to the stock exchanges, the same way as it happens in equity markets, right? And the stock exchanges are settling the units into your demat account.
Unit मतलब?
Dematerialized unit.
जो bond है, bond का unit है, ठीक है.
And hence one big risk that investors could have is कि यार I given my money to GRIP, GRIP ने मुझे bond नहीं दिया, तो मैं क्या करूँगा? But that's not the case anymore. It never comes to us, it never comes to any of us, and it goes directly to the stock exchange for settlement.
Okay.
Right? Payments are very easy. Your units are dematerialized, and same way when the returns come, the interest and principal, it doesn't mean that the bond issuer is paying it to us and we are distributing it to your bank account. We are completely out of the system. The bond issuer, through the debenture trustee, who we spoke about earlier, is paying it directly into your bank account, right? So all of this incredible secure financial infrastructure has been enabled through the OBPP license. Incredible convenience, small ticket size and transaction security.
And I believe आप लोगों ने सबने मिलके एक association form किया है, right? जैसे AMFI is for mutual funds. I don't know the full form. Association for Mutual Funds
Association of India.
of India. And you have formed OBPP Association, right? What's the job of that association?
Since we are talking about bond market and it has to be developed, there has to be a uniform way of developing the market. So while I want to add into what OBP said, so now the rule says that whatever information you are giving on your platform should be same. That gives all the retail investors a chance for an apple to apple comparison. So whatever they see on my platform will be, in terms of the information to be provided, will be same across all the platforms. So to develop the market, we thought that all the industry players should come together, because as the industry is developing, you need a lot of inputs from the regulators, you need to represent things, a lot of things to the regulators. But what was happening is everybody was going on separately, everybody had their own wish list. So forming the association, we thought, could help us develop the market in a much faster way. And trust me, it has worked for us. Okay. The kind of regulations in a positive way we are seeing coming from the regulators would have not been possible.
Give me an example.
So 10,000 is bringing the face value of bonds to 10,000. Minimum quantity of a bond you can buy is called a face value.
मतलब मेरे को अगर 1 लाख रुपए पहले मेरे को कंपलसरी था इन्वेस्ट करने के लिए,
पहले 10 लाख था,
पहले 10 लाख था,
फिर उसका 1 लाख हुआ,
अब 10,000
हो गया. So that is one of the major success that OBP association could have had done. Second, now there are a lot of advertisement code is something that association wants to formalize it. We don't want any miscommunication, misleading information going out from any one of the single OBPs.
Okay.
Because if there is any one accident, it will hamper the whole industry.
Okay.
So the association is trying to provide the guidelines about how that should be done, and that is out in the public. So now everybody knows what to showcase to their clients and in what manner it has to be showcased.
I want to add, I think fixed, bond market is one of those subsectors in financial market which actually has regulatory tailwinds. Because the regulator, government, they really want bond market to grow. It's very crucial to the country. So I think regulators also very actively trying to see how can they help this market to grow. And as an association, I think because it's a very new regulation, as Nikhil mentioned, it came in November 22. So there's so much of active industry feedback and conversation then with the regulator to, I think it's a two-way conversation to see how all of us can come together to actually, help the market grow. I think that's the...
Okay. If I take a short time span of 2 to 3 years, what would success mean for all of you individually?
I think what I'm amazed with on our platform, because we do a lot of education webinars, is so success till now is an entire genre of students who are learning about fixed income and bond market, right? So they may not be a target customer. आपने कहा कि हाँ 30 to 45 है, but that hunger for education that I've seen, or being financially aware. On our platforms, we've seen a huge number of students coming. So today they're not our clients, but in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, they say bond to karna hi hai. So when you talk about an industry trying to disrupt at the grassroots level, you start by education, and you start when they are young. And I think that's been such a pleasing thing to watch. The kind of questions they ask and they study has been really satisfying.
Awesome. Irfan?
In addition to education, which is definitely a common goal for everyone in the community, I think there are a few key things which we've discussed, run up to this point, bringing in liquidity and building the depth. I think that is a key factor to my mind.
But उसके लिए आप लोग क्या कर रहे हैं?
Sorry?
आप लोग क्या कर रहे हैं liquidity build करने के लिए?
See, at least in our conversations internally, we are trying to carve out some capital to be able to provide that kind of liquidity in terms of sell option. Today, like I said, sell करेगा किसको करेगा? So I think the foremost step that we are also taking is, can we be the buyer in case, there is something. To that, of course, to, probably a set of audience that we can carve out, kind of framework that we can, have for set of customers that we have. That could be one. In fact, in pursuit of that, SEBI also has come up with a
Liquidity
regulation
paper.
absolutely, wherein the 10K issuances, with kind of liquidity buffer
Sure.
that can be provided by the issuer in themselves. While that will evolve, because there is a feedback, certain kind of feedback that issuers also are giving, because it is costly to them. That aside, all these efforts to building that or triggering that liquidity and then building depth, to my mind, that is one big factor. If all of us do this well, we are going to see a quantum jump in the market itself, and that serves well for each one of us. And then there is a huge market, and even we believe that's the reason why we all of us are here. We solve for that, we are going to unlock that potential, and we are constantly thinking how to do this well. How can we do this efficiently, innovatively? Capital is one piece, but that is not going to be enough, right? That could be a catalyst, but how can we do that from a product perspective, from technology perspective, making it seamless? And then there are many aspects to that, including price discovery, settling that any which ways is infra that is already available. But there are multiple aspects around that. To my mind is a one key thing. To my mind, if we do that, I would consider we'll take home lot of brownie points.
Yeah, I think I would really be happy if in the next 2-3 years, we as Jiraaf or all of us together can make bond an active consideration in an investor's portfolio. I think today no one thinks about a bond like while I have 10 lakh, 50 lakh rupees to, let's say, create our financial portfolio. No one is even considering bonds today that, I should invest even 1 lakh in that in bonds as a category. So, I would just be happy if everyone is first actively considering it. Then I think making a choice to invest or not to invest has a lot to do with financial goals. So I think because we are yet to, get there, and that's what all of us are trying to, get to. So I think if we are there, I think we have, been successful as an industry, or us particularly as Jiraaf as well.
I think that goes with your tagline as well, a bond in every hand, right?
Yeah.
I like that one.
No advertising is allowed, but
Oh, it's written there. But no, I like that tagline very much. Tirth, for you?
I'll be very candid. When you said that your father said that he wants to put that money into FD, in next 2 years, if we can get people like him say that we want to use bond as a mean of investment, that would be one of the biggest achievement I would say we could have made.
Sure. Okay. And Nikhil, for you?
2 years maybe slightly
Two-
short
yeah,
for,
sure.
for this, but I think if a person can feel that they can sell the bond at any point of time,
Liquidity.
yeah, and not because one of us will buy it, but if he feels that he can sell it at any point of time, it's done, right? I think that would be really success, because the comfort that I can exit is one of the biggest comfort for any financial investor product. For that to get achieved, enough retail investors would have bought bonds, right? Because that is only when the liquidity would get developed, which means we would have created awareness and got those bonds in people's hands, and the regulation would have then supported. So to me, this is the end outcome. Now, once this is achieved, the market will just explode by itself. You don't have to do anything. With all the credit to the stock market platforms today, there is very little that they have to do to further grow the market participation. It is a self-rolling engine, right? I think that to me is success. Today, what we can do as an OBP association, as individual platforms, to get to this point of comfort is what we should all be investing in.
Okay. Awesome. Any closing thoughts from anyone?
Closing thoughts actually is more forward-looking, and maybe somewhere it is there that what more can we get, right? We've got amazing, as you said, regulatory tailwinds. We can get the bond market more organized. The distribution of fixed income stays unorganized. For equity, you have authorized person. For mutual funds, you have ARN holders. Actually, we are hopeful that something is coming, which is great, because that will make a person fit and proper test and things like that. So mis-selling की chances कम हो जाते हैं. दूसरा, I think we are still to grow. We are two venues of market. There is a capital market. There's an RFQ platform within the exchange. इसको अगर uniform हो जाए तो for a normal retail guy it's much better.
And I'm sorry, capital market RFQ का मतलब?
Should we have another half an hour conversation? there are two places on the same exchange whereby you can transact or report a bond transaction. Ek jagah, which is the rules that OBP follows, which is about full disclosure, ratings, pricing methodology, and the other platform where the disclosure is not there and the pricing methodology is different also. So it confuses an average. So I think we are going to get in that journey. We become one venue.
Okay, got it. Saurav, for you?
Yeah, I think there is lots to do. As I said, I would only request everyone who listens to this podcast that, whether they understood, didn't understand, as I said, start investing with one bond, one bond at a time. Invest that first 1,000 rupees. I think making that first investment, gives you, I think you learn enough and more that it'll push you to make that second investment, and I think you'll understand then most of the things that we spoke about over here.
Sure.
So I think starting with and making that first investment is that crucial step, and I would encourage and request everyone who listens to this podcast to do that. Yeah.
Okay. अब best pricing लो लोग अपने आप डालेंगे.
I guess if coming forward we could have a separate regulations for bond market,
Okay.
that would be an amazing thing.
तो अभी भी तो है मतलब
No, I guess for OBPP, we are considered to be a stockbroker.
अच्छा.
Nomenclature. Stockbroker and debt. It should be a debt broker.
So as you have regulations for MFI, you have regulations for equity brokers, you have regulations for insurance companies. We want that should be a regulations for bond market.
Okay.
Because that would create a way for the market to grow multifolds.
समझ गया. Okay. Irfan, for you?
So I think regulated tailwinds are there. There is potential. I think it's about
Time की हो जाएगा. Time के साथ हो जाएगा.
it's happening also. I'm sure the association also is engaging very actively with the regulator, and regulator is listening to us as well.
Sure.
Actively. So I hope this continues, and then this tailwind period continues to unlock that.
Okay. Nikhil, any closing thoughts?
I think in addition to regulatory changes which have to help this nascent industry, I think there's a lot of onus I feel which is on us. See, we have to, and I was listening to this conversation, even with the attempt of de-jargonization, we still use so much jargons. We still have to, with bonds as a product available, it is our responsibility to give the user a phenomenal experience. And this is a retail investor, not an institutional investor. We have to make every step of his process easy, comfortable, safe, and whatever we can do individually, and all of us are technology platforms, using technology, I think that to me is going to be the other big leg of making the bond market successful.
Awesome. Okay.
वो बहुत important है. If today a person can think about SIP is the biggest way to invest in the equity markets, how do we make SIP possible for bonds?
SIP, SIP. Okay.
SIP possible for bonds. How do we make sure the mutual fund market comes up for bonds? हमको वो सब चीजें करनी पड़ेंगी, नहीं तो convenience नहीं आएगी. And it will not be successful with everything else going the right way.
All right. Thank you so much. I think 1.5 to 2 hours conversation for the category, in support of the category, and I hope everyone watching this at least has got a fair idea. Bond होता क्या है, bond को evaluate कैसे करना चाहिए, bond के risk क्या है, and why bond should be a part of your diversified portfolio as well. If you have watched till the end, I would really like to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time out, and we really appreciate your support to grow this category as well. Thank you.